All right, you guys, let's go ahead and get started here in example 2. This is actually continuing lesson 1.1, shifting absolute value functions or graphs in this case. And we want to go ahead and write the following equation. We have the graph in this case of y equals absolute value of x is shifted up by 7 units and to the left by 8 units. So our goal in this case is to actually create an equation using what we're given. So the equation, we actually have a format of y equals the absolute value of a times y equals a times the absolute value of x minus an h plus a k. And in this case, guys, we actually want to go ahead and identify both h and k. A in this case is not given to us, so we're actually going to go ahead and assume that a is equal to a 1. It's not given to us here. Now, in this case, whenever we're talking about shifts, we actually have a horizontal shift and we have a vertical shift. So it's horizontal shift and we have a vertical shift. And one way to identify which one is which in this case, which one's h, which one's k, keyword here is h is for horizontal. So in this case, horizontal shift represents our h value, and our vertical shift in this case represents the k value. So once again, that is h and k. So let's go ahead and work this out, guys. Let's see what we're given. They're telling us in this case that we're shifting up by 7 units and we're going left by 8 units. Now, in this case, if we're moving up actually represents a vertical direction, and that would actually be a positive 7. Now, next thing is the left. 8 units, left in this case is a horizontal direction, so if we're moving left, that's actually going to be negative. So let's go ahead and substitute these values, guys. Let's go ahead and substitute these values. Once again, we have a, h, and k. So from here, we have y equals 1 times the absolute value of x minus, once again, the equation just called for a minus, so that's why I have a minus, a negative 8 plus a 7. So we do have to simplify this out because we do have double negatives here. So we have y equals, I'm not going to put the 1 in this case, guys. If you multiply anything by a 1, it's still going to be the same thing, so it's not going to change. And I am not going to include it. So y equals the absolute value of x. Negative times a negative in this case is a positive. And I'm going to go ahead and bring down my 7. So this here is our final answer. Final answer. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, guys. And the next one is similar to this. Once again, the goal for us here is to write the equation y equals a times the absolute value of x minus an h plus a k. So let's go ahead and find our h. A in this case given to us. And we want to go ahead and find h, which helps us represent the horizontal shift. And in this case, k helps us identify the vertical shift. Vertical shift. So in this case, once again, we want to go ahead and see what direction they're giving us here. And they're telling us that we're going to be moving down 9 units. So if we're moving down in this case, down represents a vertical direction. So if we're moving down, that's actually negative, and that's going to be a 9. Now, question for you here is, are they telling us that we're going to be moving left or right in any direction here? And the answer for here is no, they're not telling us. So if they're not giving us a direction, up or right, left or down, we're going to go ahead and assume that's a 0. So we now have a, we have h, and we have our k. So let's go ahead and substitute. And we have y equals 1 times the absolute value of x minus a 0 plus a negative 9. Once again, we're going to go ahead and rewrite this because we do have double signs there, so we need to simplify that out. And once again, I do multiply by 1, but it's not going to make a difference, so I won't include it. So y equals absolute value of x minus a 0, and positive times a negative is a negative, and this is our answer. Or we could also rewrite it as follows. Y equals the absolute value of x minus a 9 on the outside. So this here, guys, is our answer. That is our answer. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. And actually, before moving on to the next one, guys, I do want to point out something. Whenever we're given our h value and we want to go ahead and input it into the equation, notice how these two are actually different. They're both 8, but in this case, one's positive, one's negative. We do start off with the negative, but because we do have double signs there, it changes to a positive. So if you want to go ahead and find your h and k values, or more specifically your h values from an equation, it's actually going to be the opposite. So from an equation, your h value is going to be the opposite of what it shows. So let's go ahead and take a look at this next example, and it's actually what we were just talking about now, which is finding the h and k values from an equation. In this case, we want to go ahead and describe the transformation, and we have the function f of x equals absolute value of x, and g of x equals the absolute value of x plus 4 plus a 3. So there's actually two ways we could do this. One way we could do this is that we could actually take a look at the equation here. And like the previous example I showed you right now, h actually represents the opposite in an equation. So here h, when you find your h value, it's actually the opposite of the given value. It's the opposite of the given value. So that is h. So in this case, since we're given a positive h in this case is actually going to be a negative 4. So if we were to graph this, we're actually going to see that the graph is going to be moving left 4 units. Instead of moving right, it's actually moving left 4 units. And in this case, h is the only one that's special. K in this case stays the same. So our k value here, k is going to be equal to 3, which in this case is going to be moving up 3 units. All right. So this would be concluding our examples, guys. We do have another practice problem, and you guys are going to do this one on your own. Before we move on, though, I apologize. This is one way we could approach the answer. Another way is that you guys could actually graph this on Desmos. So go to Desmos graphing calculator. Graphing calc. And count. You're actually going to be counting from this graph to this graph, and you're going to see how many spaces there are away from each other. And our answers would actually be these here.